Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in. I think it's Saturday. Yeah, it's Saturday afternoon. I think everybody's out enjoying their day. I was out helping a good friend of mine move earlier today, so that was my workout for today, running up and down stairs. So I am taking a break right now and wanted to catch up on my reading and check in with all of you guys and talk about our 30 books in 30 weeks for week 17. This week we're talking about make the connection is the book selection for this week. It's one of my favorite books by Oprah, and it was written with one of her trainers, Bob Greene. And while much of the book talks about diet and exercise, there's some valuable life lessons in this book that's kind of tucked in between the pages, and you sort of got to read between the lines, as they say, to really fully comprehend the impact that how we think about things. I talk about all the time how we think about things affects our behavior, and obviously that's true with weight loss, diet, exercise, that type of thing. But today's subject is resetting the set point on your life, relationships, and business. So I'm going to talk through what that looks like to kind of explain maybe what a set point is for those of you who aren't familiar. It's kind of fitness industry language, but wellness is a form of fitness, and certainly getting in touch with your emotions and that physical mental health aspect is certainly a wellness activity. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. For those of you, as you're coming in, feel free to share the video out. Welcome some other people into the conversation. That's always a great thing. For those of you who maybe don't know who I am, my name is Marcy Batiste. I am America's #1 reality-based success and recovery trainer. I live life on Mars. I'm sold out to my happiness, and the best thing in the world to me is to help another woman discover and embrace her star power. I came into this industry and I started this business because I knew from personal experience what it feels like and how detrimental it is, hey Leo, to walk around emotionally bankrupt, spiritually unlined, and just physically exhausted. You're just tired, you're spent, you've given all that you can give. And I knew what that felt like, but what I learned from my own experience was that it doesn't have to stay that way. Difference available, better is available, awesome is waiting. And not to say that people don't always have, you still have bad days. I still have rough days. I still have days when things don't go right. But how we think about those days when things aren't going so well is so important. And I talk a lot about reconnecting the disconnects, and certainly making the connection with those disconnects is a huge part of that. And so today I want to talk about how to reset the set point. And so to give you guys sort of a frame of reference on what a set point is, as we kind of dive into this conversation, set point is sort of a fitness term. It's an industry term where it's really talking about your body's metabolism, how you process fat, what is your body's tendency to be a certain weight, right? And so you can alter your set points by altering certain behaviors to varying degrees. But a set point is kind of a set point. That's why they call it that. And so that is your natural tendency. That's your natural tendency to be a certain weight, for your body to behave in a certain way, for your metabolism to burn at a certain rate, and to be able to process calories at a certain rate. So I was thinking about conceptually, as I always have shared with you guys, managing my weight. That weight management piece has always been a huge part of my life, and some of my biggest obstacles have been surrounding weight management and that whole fitness exercise thing. And so I had to be very methodical and very strategic about incorporating that into my life and making sure that that's a part of my life. And so when you focus on those things, you can alter that set point. So that physical wellness, that metabolism, all of that, your fitness capacity, your lung capacity, all of those things have basic set points that you can manage, right? Well, we all have set points with relationships as well. And so I tell you guys all the time that you teach people how to be in relation with you. Well, as you're teaching them how to be in relation with you, you're creating a set point. You're saying, okay, for this interaction, for our relationship, this is what I want it to look like. And so you kind of maneuver it a little bit to begin with, and then you settle in, right? And that's where you find that this is kind of how we operate. And you have different people that you operate differently with, right? So each relationship has a different set point. So how I operate with a spouse is going to be different than how I operate with a coworker, which is going to be different from how I operate with my mother, which alters from how I operate with my sister or my brother, cousins, etc. And so all of these different relationships have varying set points. And so this is like a baseline for that relationship. So what happens oftentimes when we decide that we're going to go on a personal development journey and that we're ready to start reconnecting our disconnects, that starts messing with those set points, because everything that you have taught them up to now on how to be in relation with you all of a sudden is in jeopardy. It's like starting an exercise routine and all of a sudden your metabolism's like, whoa, hold on, I don't know what we're doing here. That's how people's relationships are when you start beginning to change and they start seeing you change. And so that's where a lot of that resistance comes from. They talk about, the people closest to you can be the biggest roadblocks for you when you're trying to improve your life, when you're trying to make changes. If you want to start a business, they'll be all for, yay, go get a job. But if you tell them you want to start your own business, they're like, there's really no interest in it. And then we get upset because we're like, well, your friends, your family, you should support my endeavors, you should encourage me. That's not what they signed up for. That's not where their set point is. And so you have to be aware of what that relationship set point looks like. When you start making changes, that fools around with that set point. And so you have to begin to recalibrate what each individual relationship looks like. And so a lot of times people will think, well, I'm going to go on this journey for fitness example. I'm going to go on this fitness journey and I want to lose 50 pounds. And you start off, you're doing good, you're starting to be committed. Well, the people that you had set points with that were based on food and going out and hanging out and stuff, there's a threat there. And so now they're like, I don't really know how to be in relation with you anymore because you have changed what that looks like. And so there's this constant pull to get that set point back to what they know it to be. And that happens with all personal development journeys. Anytime you want to make a huge change in your life, your relationship, or your business, you're going to upset the apple cart with the existing set points, and you have to retrain those people with the new situation, and you have to recalibrate for them. What is this going to look like going forward? Because if it looks like it's always looked, then you're going to get the results that you've always got because you're behaving the same way. If you begin to behave differently, you're never going to get those same results, because those same results are dependent upon a certain type of behavior. So unless that behavior drops back, then that set point's forced to change. And not everybody's ready to be recalibrated. Not everybody wants the relationship to be recalibrated. And that's when you have to look and you have to say, you know what? Maybe this is one I'm going to have to let go of. And, that was one of the key things for me. I think I shared on a video earlier in the week that this book was a key element in me deciding that I needed to get a divorce. Now, at no point in this book did either Oprah or Bob Greene say, leave your spouses. Didn't say that. But what they talk about is sometimes the things that you're holding on to the tightest is what's forcing you to hold on to the weight as well. When I was reading this, it was about a weight loss journey. And so it was forcing me to hold on, because oftentimes being overweight, overeating, mismanaging food is symptomatic of larger issues in your life. So food becomes like a coping mechanism for you, It becomes like a comfort. People are like, oh, I'm a comfort eater, I'm an emotional eater. Um, it's you just making a choice, right? It's a behavior. So what's driving that behavior is what you have to look at. So why do I feel emotional? What are the emotional triggers that are making me behave in a certain way? Whether it's overeating, whether it's consuming alcohol, doing drugs, philandering, whatever the case may be, whatever that thing is for you. You have to look at what's the trigger behind that, and then you have to be willing to address the trigger. And so what I learned when I began to process this, and I started adjusting set points in various areas of my life, was that one of the biggest triggers for me, one of the biggest sources of my unhappiness and discomfort, was being unhappy in my marriage. And it was tough. It was really tough. I struggled with it for about 2 years before I told my husband that I wanted a divorce. And I struggled with it from the standpoint, that I took that covenant very seriously. I took my vows very seriously. I took the commitment to my family, to my children, very, very seriously. But what I understood was it was bigger than all of those things. It was image. It was ego. Because that, in my mind, the family unit represented a certain level of success, because that's not how I grew up. I grew up in an abusive household with an abusive stepfather. So a successful marriage to me represented success. And so that for me was one of my set points. The marriage was a set point for me. But I had to be willing to make that look differently in order to address those underlying triggers, and really breaking that down to say, what is it that the marriage represents? How if I remove that piece, because when we talk about we change the behaviors, then we automatically start adjusting the set point, right? So if I'm adjusting that and I remove that situation, who am I without that? What does that do to my set point? What does that do to my identity? Because a huge part of that was being a wife, and I had to leave all of that on the table. I had to put it all on the table, and I had to say, okay, what pieces of this are important to me? And I realized that the title of wife was one of the things I needed to let go. I had to realize that title was not indicative of my value. It was not indicative of a level of success. Likewise, I had to accept that divorcee, whatever the terms are, divorced woman, whatever, was not a negative thing, because how I thought about those two words altered what that set point was going to look like. Because what I started to see was, in order for me to reach happiness and begin to be able to release weight, I needed to begin addressing this marital issue that was a source of dissatisfaction in my life and unhappiness. And so if I truly wanted to be happy, I had to identify all of the things, people, the places, the stuff, the commitments that I was doing that led to feelings of unhappiness and discomfort and frustration and irritation. And then I had to, one by one, begin to just check them off and let them go. And that was how I was able to reset my set points in relationships. And now that I have that base of understanding, I'm pretty careful when establishing new relationships to try and honor what I know is my beacon, my guiding light, my true north, my north star, whatever you want to call it, which is my happiness. Does this make me happy? Does this cause me discomfort? Do I feel anxiety? I'm very in tune with the emotions that are tied to various relationships and responsibilities. And if it's a responsibility or relationship that leaves me feeling anxious or uncomfortable, then I'm okay making that adjustment and altering and changing that set point. And understanding that sometimes when you change the set point, you have to be prepared for relationships to end, because that other person is not prepared to have it change. They don't want. That's not what they want. That's not what they're signing up for. And you have to be accepting of and respect the fact that that's their right. Just like it's your right to change, your right to grow, your right to improve, it's their right to stay the same. And I always say, like, the one thing about people who don't want to change, they'll always be there when you come back. You never have to worry about having to find them. They'll always be right where you left them. And that sounds kind of harsh. It sounds kind of but that's reality. We talk about reality-based training. That's reality. Reality is they'll be right where you left them because they're not going to change. They're so tied to that set point of their own life as it is that you can go off into the world, you can change, you can grow, you can travel the world. When you come back, they'll still be sitting on the same corner that you left them. That's reality. That's a fact. So in order to achieve that happiness, achieve that freedom that you're looking for, you have to begin adjusting what those set points are. You can't allow your tendencies and your ordinary behaviors to be your driving force anymore. You have to be intentional about changing certain behaviors so that you can therefore change your results. So that's the word for today. We're talking about reconnecting the disconnects and how to make the connection. And so today's conversation was about the set point. So hopefully I've said something that will help you in reviewing relationships and making yourself be able to prepare to address some of your set points and alter them as you find that you need to do in order to achieve the happiness and the success that you're looking for. So thanks as always, you guys, for tuning in. Thanks for living life on Mars, and I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great day.